I I can't fight the urge anymore. Deku, he has to die. As Momo walks into Deku's room. Well, his dorm room, of course. She would take a knife and she would pierce Deku straight through the heart, killing him instantly. What's up, guys? It's your boy Dark Sage, back with another video. And today we finna be doing What If Deku Was a Walking W, part 1. But before we get into the video, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, because it'll help young dude out. But we won't talk about that. So let's get into the video. So after Momo proceeds to murder Deku, she walks out of his dorm room with bloody hands, and she runs back to her room, takes a shower, and she goes to the common room. And she says, "Has anybody seen Deku around?" And Bakiko says, "Nobody's seen that nerd around. He's probably in his room." And Momo says, "Thanks." And while she's walking to Deku's room, she smirks. Because, well, she murked that nigga. And so when she gets to the room, she screams. And everybody comes rushing in. And she says, "Izuku is dead." And everybody sees him lying in a pool of his own blood. And they all call for the pro heroes. All Might would arrive. And let's say once a one for all user dies, the quirk just goes back to the previous owner. Why not? And so All Might would feel that his quirk has returned. And he'd say, "There's nothing we can do. He's dead." And everybody would be in shock because the number one hero, All Might, just said that Izuku was dead. He didn't try to check or anything. And so they're all saying, "What do you mean? You haven't checked his pulse? You haven't done anything. He couldn't be dead." But he is. All Might would then go on to explain that he gave his quirk to Izuku, and once he died, well, he got his quirk back. So they all come to accept Deku's death, and they all agree to hold the memorial service in 3 weeks. And this time, Momo has grown closer to Todoroki. Everybody just thought it was normal, but she started to kind of flirt with him. Todoroki knew that Momo liked him, but to get over Deku this soon was weird. But he didn't mind it. So after the 3 weeks, they started dating. And they went to the memorial service as a couple, surprising Inko and Deku's disappointed stepdad. He never really liked Izuku. He always thought he was a brat. A bitch, to be more precise. He would always cry. And he was a mama's boy, he would say. And so, when everybody got to the memorial service, Inko was shocked to see that Momo was with Todoroki. They were holding hands. This confused her, but she would then She would walk over to Momo and say, "Momo, you're with Todoroki now?" And Momo would start to cry, and she would say, "Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but he's just really comforting." And as she says this, she hugs Todoroki, who is left to be confused because, well, that nigga's cold as fuck. But we won't get into that. So when they basically go to bury Deku, they see his casket. His casket is filled with thousands of small demons. And Deku's green hair would turn black. His red eyes would appear. And blood would start to fill his coffin. The demons would leave Deku's body in the pool of blood. And they'd say, "Give him 24 hours. He'll be back." And they'd disappear, leaving everybody shocked. Inko would then run over to the pool of blood that Deku's in, and she would try to get him out, but the one demon would appear and say, "If you get him out, he'll die forever. If you leave him in, he'll live again." And so Inko drops her son, and she basically walks back to her seat. Nobody knows really what to do anymore, so they leave Deku's body there, and they all leave. Fast forward a day. I'm back. That jealous bitch. She killed me. I want revenge. Revenge will be mine. Her life belongs to me. As Deku's red eyes open, he would be overly angry. And this is basically Deku's outfit. And so Deku would get up from the coffin, and all of the blood would vanish. And Deku would say, "Oh, that's right. My new ability." And he would walk, well, he wouldn't walk to UA, not yet. He'd walk into the forest. When Deku arrived at a cave, he would say, "Let's test this out, shall we?" And he would get a sharp rock and cut himself with it. And he'd say, "Let's do this." And Deku's blood would spill, and it would start to form a pentagram. And a sword would come out. It would look like this. This is the sword that would come out. And Deku would say, "That's nice. That's very nice." And so, once Deku basically gets his sword, he would say, "Blood magic. Absolute needles." And a bunch of blood needles would come from his body, and they would pierce the stone cave. And Deku would say, "Good, I have blood magic. The demon told me I would." Flashback. After Deku was brutally fucking murked by Momo, his soul traveled to hell. And Deku met a funny looking demon, a gremlin to be more precise, that asked him if he wanted to live. And Deku said, "Yes, I do." And so the gremlin took him to a dragon. And this dragon says, "He will be my successor. He will take my blood." And he would tell Deku to drink his blood, basically. And so Deku does. And he would scream out in agony because this monster, dragon's blood, it would start to course throughout his body, fusing with his own. And once it fused with Deku's blood, He felt weird. He didn't know what he felt like. But the dragon was gone. And so Deku didn't say anything. He was just confused until the gremlin spoke up and he said, Master is inside of you now. You now have his power. It's called blood magic. I'll teach you a few basic spells, like blood needles, blood coffin, and my personal favorite, blood hell. You'll also be getting this blood sword. It's made out of dragon scales and the blood of my master. And he would hand Deku the sword. And he'd say, put it away. Throw it into the portal. And a small portal would open up. And Deku would throw it in. And then the gremlin would say, well, I'll be seeing you. And he punches Deku dead in the chest, knocking his shit out on some fucking Avengers Hulk shit. And Deku's spirit goes back to his body. End of the flashback. So, once Deku basically confirms that his blood magic was real, he ends up going deeper into the forest, trying to find water, because he wants to see something. And so Deku eventually finds a river after minutes of walking, and he tries something. The same cut on his hand, he would go on to use it to fuse his blood with the water. And Deku would say, if this would work, I'll be unstoppable. And Deku would be able to lift the water because his blood was fused in it. And Deku would say, oh hell yeah. So, I can control other things with my blood as well. What if I were to... Could I control a human or an animal with my blood? And so Deku would look for an animal. And he would find a small rabbit. And he would say, oh, what spell should I use? And he would think to himself, blood puppet. And the rabbit would seem to look at Deku and it would freeze. And Deku's mind would say, go right. And the bunny would hop right. And Deku would say, go left. Then the bunny would hop left. And then Deku would say, kill yourself. And the bunny would go hop in a river. And Deku would say, good. Now, let's go to that damn school. Once Deku leaves the forest, he would call for a taxi. And the man would see Deku. And Deku would say, take me to UA High School, please. And so the man would take him to UA High School. Deku would kill the man. And he would fucking drown the man. He drowned the man in his blood. And then he'd disintegrate the car using blood hell. Which is basically acid blood. But that doesn't matter. So when Deku gets back to UA, he goes into the school. And he says, Nezu, where are you? And everybody would be looking at Deku like he's crazy. Because, I mean, this nigga just kicked in the doors to UA and demanded to see Nezu. And so one of the students would take him to Nezu. And Deku would say, I'm back. And Nezu would say, I'm sorry, who are you? Don't tell me, Nezu. You forgot one of your students. I'm the student that died, or more or less was killed by a bitch that I'm gonna kill myself. But that'll take some time. And so Nezu's eyes would open wide and he'd say, Izuku, what are you doing here? How are you alive? Deku would then go on to explain that, he went to hell. He met a dragon, a gremlin. They gave him their power. And shit, now he's back. Nezu would be extremely shocked by this, but he would say, well then, okay. Just go back to Aizawa's class. And Deku would say, alright. And he would walk back to Aizawa's class. Once he gets there, he sees Momo. And the most sinister smile comes over his face. Because Deku's gonna make her life a living hell from here on out. But all the girls in the class see Deku. And their jaws drop. And Deku would say, what are you guys looking at? And Aizawa would say, who are you? And Deku would say, I'm Isuku Midoriya. And everybody would look at him confused, shocked. And the girls would be shit. They'd be horny as fuck right now because, like, Deku's fine as shit. But, no homo. But, Deku would go over to Uraraka and he would sit next to her. And he'd say, catch me up on everything. And she'd basically explain that they were about to do the, what is it called? They were about to do the, hold on. The cavalry battle, That's what it was called, shit. But, yeah. So, Deku says, the sports festival. What is that? And Uraraka would say, it's basically where we compete, and whoever gets first will be scouted out. And Deku would say, well, that's cool. I think I'll participate in that. And Aizawa would say, Deku, come here for a minute. And he'd say, how are you going to participate in All Might Take Your Quirk? Deku would then go on to say, blood creation magic, Eiffel Tower. And a small Eiffel Tower would appear on Aizawa's desk. And Bakugo would see this and he'd say, what the hell is that? Nerd, did you have some type of power? And Deku would say, oh, my friend Bakugo. No, I didn't. I was just given this power by a friend of mine. And everybody would say, who's your friend? And Deku would smile and he'd say, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Stupid. But Deku would then go back to take his seat. And the class would resume. After the school day ended, Deku would walk over to Momo. And he would say, Momo, let's have a chat, shall we? And so Momo and Deku go to the nearest alleyway. And he would say, Momo, give me one good reason I shouldn't kill you right now. And Momo would get on her knees and start begging him not to kill her. She would say she's sorry, it was a mistake. And she loved him. But This would only make Deku angrier, as he grabbed her by her throat and said, "You didn't love me. You killed me. Now, show me who you really loved." Blood creation magic. Truth-seeking orb. And no, this is not a Naruto truth-seeking orb. He takes this orb and he plunges it into Momo's chest. And Momo would start to confess. And she'd end up saying that she was in love with Todoroki. That's why she killed him. And so Deku drops her to the ground and he takes the truth-seeking orb back. And he would grab his head and say, "So you're fucking telling me you killed me just so you can be with Todoroki? Bitch, all you had to do was break up with me. What is this? Are you dumb? Stupid?" And Momo would start to cry, alerting Todoroki, because let's say that he was nearby. And Todoroki would say, "What are you doing to my woman, Izuku?" And Deku would say, "Huh, your woman? Sure." And Todoroki would say, "Yes, she is my woman. After you died, she got with me." Well, obviously she knew who was better, but that doesn't matter. As he would grab Momo, scowl at Deku, and kiss Momo right in front of Deku. And this would make Deku smile. Smile a huge grin. But Deku won't get revenge on either one of them right now, because he wants to publicly embarrass them, if you know where I'm going with this. But fast forward the next day. It's time for the sports festival. I'm gonna zoom past this because I really want to get to the fights. So, once they get to the racing part of the sports festival, President Mike would say go, and Deku would say, "Bakugo, come here, please." Bakugo would then come over to Deku, and he'd say, "Alright, since you've been cool with me for a minute, I'm gonna help you out." And Bakugo would go on to say, "Well, nerd, what are you talking about?" And Deku would say, "Blood creation magic, teleportation." And both of them would teleport to the finish line, earning them each 1 million points. And so, once they get their headbands, Bakugo's jaw, along with everybody else's, is instantly dropped, because they didn't know that Deku had a teleportation quirk. Nobody knew. Not even his mom, who was in the stadium with her jaw dropped, saying, "Let's go, honey. Good job, Izuku." "Wow," she whispers to herself, and she thinks to herself, "When did he get this power? He didn't even tell me about this." And Deku would say, he would look at the camera and say, "Thanks, Mom. And by the way, I wanted it to be a surprise." And everybody would hear this and they'd be like, "Aw, he wanted to surprise his mom." But that doesn't matter. So I fucking hate the cavalry battle. There was literally no point to that. So we'll just say Deku basically knocked off everybody that needed to be knocked off, and they continued with their day. So, after the cavalry battle, they would go on to the 1v1s, the fighting, the battling, the killing. Hooray. And so the first matchup would be, I'll say, Deku versus, no, never mind. We'll say it was Mineta versus fucking that tail guy, and Benetta got brutally whipped. Like, he got his ass beat on some dead shit. And so all the battles go on until it's eventually Deku versus, well, Momo. Because boys are fighting girls, and I don't really give a fuck. And so once they step on the ring, Deku sees Momo, and he says, it's time. And Deku's blood would start to come from out of his back, because he would cut his back with the knife that he had. And the fucking bandages that were on his arms would come off. And Deku would have 3 tattoos grow on him. His arms would have a tattoo, and his chest would have a tattoo. And they would spell out demon. Everybody would be confused at this until they saw what Deku's blood was making. It was making a demon, a huge blood demon. And Deku would say, die. Blood magic. Hell rain. And as he says this, a huge fucking cloud appears over the entire stadium. And it starts raining. Everybody's questioning this until they see the blood that's coming down. And when it hit Momo, she screamed. Because this was no ordinary blood. This was acid blood. And there was no way of escaping it. But just because of plot, we'll say that nobody in the stands was killed because, yeah, Deku's not that fucked up. And so as Momo is screaming, Deku would say, Midnight, can I have the microphone, please? And Midnight would say, no, you villain, you're killing your classmate. And Deku would say, give me the microphone, or you'll be next. And at this point, everybody's scared because this nigga's Deku is acting weird. Deku would then go on to get the microphone, and everybody would be screaming at him to stop this, including his mother, until Deku would say, silence. This bitch deserves it. She was the one who killed me over Todoroki. And he would smile at him, and he'd say, she could have just broken up with me. But she went on to stab me through my heart. Literally. And Deku would drop the mic, and he'd say, disperse. And the cloud would disperse, and Momo would be left with 10-degree burns, and she would fall over, pass out, and be nearly dead. And so Deku would walk off, and he'd leave the arena, he'd go home, and he'd say, Chapter 1, the god of winning is born. But I'm going to be leaving it off here because I'm going to do another what if. And that what if, well, you'll see what it is. But yeah, bye.